You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm your host, William Cooper. The fable of Isis and Osiris, as it has descended to us in the account given by Plutarch, has not been greatly amplified by any modern research. The Egyptian fragments, which have been translated in recent years, offer no complete account of the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Osiris, nor has any new key been found to unlock this great drama, which may well be termed the Passion Play of Egypt. It is not our intention to perpetuate Plutarch's account merely for its outward appearance, but rather from the same motive that inspired Synesius, Platonic philosopher and Christian bishop, to compile his account of the same fabulous history. Synesius, in his treatise on Providence, and you hear that word a lot in the secret societies and especially in Freemasonry, thus introduces the Osirian myth. Quote, "This fable is Egyptian. The Egyptians transcend in wisdom. Perhaps, therefore, this also being a fable obscurely signifies something more than a fable, because it is Egyptian. If, however, it is not a fable, but a sacred discourse, it will deserve in a still greater degree to be told and committed to writing." Unquote. In presenting a summary of Plutarch's account, I am omitting nothing which could in any way be regarded as relevant. I am taking the liberty, however, of somewhat expanding the fable by incorporating therein some small fragments derived from other Greek writers, and occasionally a few words bearing upon the account from fragments of Egyptian religious literature. The story, then, is in substance as follows. The goddess Nut, whom Plutarch identifies with Rhea, was the daughter of Shu and Tefnut. She is the wife of Seb, also known as Saturn, and the mother of Ra, or Helios, also known as the sun. Now, if we're to trust Plutarch, she afterwards becomes the wife of Ra, or the sun. Nut is unfaithful to Ra, who, discovering that she is with child by Seb, pronounces a curse upon her that she should not be delivered of her progeny in any month or year. Thoth, which is Hermes or Mercury, who is also in love with Nut, comes to her assistance with a stratagem. He plays at tables with the moon goddess Selene, and wins from her the 70th part of each of her illuminations. And joining these parts together, he forms of them 5 days, which he adds to the calendar. Previous to that time, the Egyptian year consisted of 360 days, the exact number of degrees in a circle. Now, these 5 days being not part of any month or year, Ra was outwitted. You see, because upon these days, Nut brought forth her 5 children at different times in different places. Upon the first of these days, she brought forth Osiris, and the place of his birth, according to Diodorus, was Mount Nisa in Arabia, the Happy. Mount Nisa is now Mount Sinai, folks. At the moment of the birth of Osiris, a voice sounded throughout the world, saying, quote, "The Lord of all the earth is born," unquote. On the second day, Nut gave birth to Eroris, the elder Horus. On the third day, Typhon or Set. On the fourth day, Isis, and on the fifth and last day, Nephthys. The Egyptians, therefore, regard the 5 days, which they term the epact or superadded, as the birthdays of the gods, especially venerating the fourth of them, upon which the benevolent goddess Isis came into being. Plutarch further on announces that the 5 children of Nut were not all of the same father, thus contradicting his earlier statement. For he says that Osiris and the elder Horus were the children of Ra, that Isis was the daughter of Thoth, and only Typhon and Nephthys were actually the offspring of Seb. There is another, and even more recondite legend regarding the elder Horus, which denies him the fathership of Ra, declaring him to be the offspring of Osiris and Isis, while they were still in the womb of Nut. Now these accounts we shall consider later. Osiris was given to Pamlis to be educated, and having come to the years of majority, became the king of Egypt. In this high capacity, Osiris applied himself to the civilizing of his nation, turning the Egyptians from their previously indigent and barbarous course of life to a happy and community existence. He taught them agriculture, compiled for them a body of laws for the regulation of conduct, instructed them in the reverencing and worship of the gods, thus establishing Egypt in all the essentials of truth, according to the legend. Now, having brought his own nation to prosperity and enlightenment, Osiris traveled over the rest of the world, converting peoples to his disciplines, not by force, but the persuasion of reason. Osiris was accompanied on this journey by a procession of nymphs and other superphysical beings who filled the air with music and song. In the meantime, Typhon, brother or half-brother of Osiris, had ambition to usurp the throne, but the vigilant Isis, sister wife of Osiris, was too watchful. Typhon, however, having persuaded 72 other persons to join him in his conspiracy, with the aid of a certain queen in Ethiopia named Aso, perfected a plot against Osiris. He fashioned a chest exactly to the measurement of the body of Osiris, which chest he caused to be brought into the banquet hall, where the princes of Egypt were feasting their king's return. Typhon, simulating jest, promised this elaborately ornamented box to the one whose body, upon trial, most nearly fitted it. Now each of the princes in turn lay down in the box, but each was too short or too tall, until last of all Osiris himself lay down in it. Immediately the 72 conspirators rushed to the box, clamped the cover upon it, fastened it with nails, and poured melted lead over all the cracks and crevices. After this, they carried the chest to the bank of the Nile and cast it into the river where it joins the sea. Now this evil deed was executed upon the 17th day of the Egyptian month of Athir, when the sun was in Scorpio. According to some, it was in the 28th year of the reign of Osiris, and to others in the 28th year of his life. Now try to remember these numbers. If you can't, jot them down, but these numbers will crop up again and again and again. Scorpio crops up, 17 crops up, 28 crops up, and many other numbers, and they all have significance in the mystery religion of Babylon, the secret societies, and to the guardians of the secrets of the ages. As soon as Isis received word of this crime, she cut off one of the locks of her hair and put on the mourning apparel of widowhood, for which reason the spot where she did this was afterwards called Koptos. That's Koptos, or the city of mourning. After donning the widow's weeds, Isis set forth in search of her husband's body and wandered about all Europe, wandered about all Egypt, asking all with whom she came in contact. You see, I may be back here in the United States, but a lot of my thoughts, folks, are still in Europe. Finally, some children who had been at play told Isis that they had seen the accomplices of Typhon carrying the chest to the Nile. For that reason, Egyptians regard the words of children as oracular and pay great attention to them. While Isis was searching for her husband's body, she learned that Nephthys, her sister, had by magic insinuated herself into the presence of Osiris before his death, and in the guise of Isis had conceived a son from him. Now Isis sought out the child, which Nephthys has deserted for fear of Typhon's anger, and adopting it, attached it to her person as a constant guard and attendant. This was Anubis, the dog-headed god, who appears in the Book of the Dead and in many of the Egyptian hieroglyphics. After some time, Isis learned that the chest had been carried by the sea to the coast of Byblos. Now, Byblos is also the name for book or Bible, where it had lodged in the branches of a bush of tamarisk, which had grown up miraculously about the sacred receptacle and concealed it within its trunk. Now remember this tamarisk, and remember that it is a tree. The king of Byblos, amazed at the miracle, caused the tree to be cut down, and from the trunk containing the box, he made a pillar to support the roof of his palace. Now by magic, Isis discovered this, and traveling immediately to Byblos, attached herself to the suite of the queen as a nurse to her children. At night, when all the palace was asleep, Isis transformed herself into a swallow and fluttered around the column, bemoaning her fate in strange, sad notes. In due time, Isis revealed her divine nature and asked that the pillar be cut down. Taking therefrom the chest, she departed with it into a desert place where she performed certain magical rites by which the body of Osiris was temporarily animated. And by this animation she received from Osiris a son who is called the younger Horus, the child who was conceived of the dead. Now there is some confusion in the account at this point. Plutarch says that Isis left the body of Osiris temporarily to visit her son Horus, just mentioned, but the context of the fable would rather call for her departure to a secluded place where the child could be born without the knowledge of Typhon, who certainly would have destroyed him. Isis hid the chest in a remote and unfrequented place, but Typhon, hunting one night by the light of the moon, chanced upon it. Knowing its contents, and realizing Isis to be proficient in magic, he resolved to thwart her purposes, and tearing the body into 14 parts, he scattered them over Egypt. Now remember, 14 parts. Folks, don't forget that. From the inscriptions on the Metternich stele, it seems that Set must have imprisoned Isis and her son Horus. The goddess is made to say, quote, "I am Isis, and I came forth from the house wherein my brother Set had placed me," unquote. Thoth, the prince of law, again came to her assistance and aided Isis to escape from the house. Was it really a prison? Or was it really the house of Set? Thoth, also at this time, prophesied that Horus would sit upon the throne of his father and rule the double empire of Egypt. Upon the advice of Thoth, Isis hides the child in a papyrus swamp, thus saving him from the wrath of Set. Isis returning, having left her son at Butos, and fashioning a magical boat out of papyrus, traversed the whole of the empire. As she met with the scattered parts of her husband, she buried each one separately. First, however, encasing it in a magical mummy composed of wax, incense, and grain seed. She finally recovered all of the parts of Osiris except the phallus, or the penis, which had been thrown into the river and devoured by 3 fishes. This organ Isis reproduced in gold. Remember this also. Remember the 3 fishes, for they represent ignorance, superstition, and fear. They also represent the church, the state, and the mob. And remember that Isis reproduced this organ, in gold, and having performed all of the ceremonies necessary to ensure the life of Osiris in the underworld, she returned to her son Horus, and by the theurgic arts, of which she was mistress, saved him from death, from the stings of scorpions. Horus, having grown to man's estate, and having received from his mother the tradition of his father's murder, longed to avenge the evil deed. Osiris appeared to his son in a vision, instructing him in the means by which he could overcome the hosts of Typhon. Now we are led to infer that Horus gathered about him an army which, meeting the hosts of Typhon, battled with them for many days, achieving victory. Typhon, according to the legend, was taken prisoner and turned over to the custody of Isis. Now Isis, being his sister, could not bring herself to put him to death, but set him at liberty, which so incensed Horus that he laid hands upon his mother and removed from her head the insignia of royalty. Thereupon Thoth gave her a new helmet, made in the shape of an ox's head. Typhon next accused Horus of illegitimacy, but Thoth proves his royal descent. Typhon again goes into battle against Horus. In fact, 2 battles are mentioned, in both of which Typhon is worsted. And Horus regains the kingdom of his father, and is regarded, to at least a certain degree, as the actual reincarnation of Osiris. So here you've had a death and a resurrection. After its resurrection in the underworld, the shade of Osiris visits Isis, and in consequence thereof, she gives birth to another son, as it were, by a Holy Ghost, for she knew no living man. This child is called Harpocrates, and Plutarch says of him that he, quote, came into the world before his time and lame in his lower limbs, unquote. Harpocrates is usually depicted as a nude figure, his head adorned with a single curling lock of hair on the right side, this being with the Egyptians a symbol of youth or adolescence. He is sometimes depicted with an elaborate plumed headdress or wearing the double crown of the northern and southern empires. His finger is placed to his lips, which Plutarch interprets as a gesture symbolic of his childish and helpless state. The Greeks and Romans, however, considered this gesture to be a symbol for silence or secrecy, and from this has arisen the custom of placing the finger to the lips as a motion for quietness and secrecy, and we do it today. Statues of the god Harpocrates were placed at the entrances to temples and sacred retreats where the dramas of the mysteries were performed, as a sign that silence and secrecy should be observed in the holy places, and that all initiates were bound by vows of discretion. Harpocrates is also sometimes shown standing, and at other times he is depicted seated on the blossom of a lotus, just like Buddha. Although he is usually figured with childish immaturity of body, the imperfection of his lower limbs, as described by Plutarch, is not apparent in any of the Egyptian drawings. It therefore seems that the statements concerning this deformity should be more carefully examined. Samuel Squire, whose translation of Plutarch's Isis and Osiris, made in 1744, is still the most often quoted by Egyptologists. Well, he states definitely, quote, lame in his lower limbs. G.R.S. Mead translated the same essay much later and gives a slightly different rendering of Plutarch's words. Mr. Mead says, quote, weak in his limbs from below upwards, unquote. This difference in wording, though slight, may have an unexpected significance. You see, there's some general information contained in Synesius's treatise on Providence that should be included in this Osirian epic. Synesius is of the opinion that Osiris should be regarded as an historical king, whose father, transcending in wisdom, instructed his benevolent son in all the secrets of the divine science of government. Synesius is moved to this conclusion by a desire to keep all speculation within the sphere of the reasonable. The Platonist bishop seems to have derived much of his account from origins foreign to Plutarch's treatise, or possibly he interpreted differently the restrictions imposed by his vows. Synesius, a prudent and conscientious author, wary of myths and fables, and exhibiting a truly Platonic conservativeness in his handling of subject matter, yet Synesius was beyond question a deeply religious philosopher and an initiate of pagan mysteries prior to his conversion to the Christian faith, and therefore may have hidden the true meaning of the fable. Thomas Taylor is of the mind that the treatise on Providence was written while Synesius was still a votary of pagan mysteries. Now, if so, the writing is unbiased and trustworthy and presents a fair picture of the mystical traditions of the Egyptians interpreted in terms of Platonic metaphysics, but only the exoteric would be allowed to be seen by the profane. Synesius inserts into his narrative a considerable description of the various character of Osiris, which he sharply contrasts with the vice-ridden nature of Typhon. He also explains in detail the process of election by which Osiris came to the throne of Egypt. The electional ceremony, as described by Synesius, is evidently itself a fragment from some secret ritual relating to the installation of a hierophant of the mysteries. Next, Osiris receives from his father an elaborate dissertation in the Platonic temper concerning the relative power of good and evil, in which he is fully warned against the machinations of Typhon. Possibly the most important sentence in Synesius's treatise occurs during this dissertation. The father of Osiris is made to say to his son, quote, "You also have been initiated in those mysteries in which there are two pair of eyes, and it is requisite that the pair which are beneath should be closed, when the pair that are above them perceive, and when the pair above are closed, those which are beneath should be opened," unquote. Now, these words unquestionably have an arcane meaning and are incorporated into the narrative that the true significance of the whole Osirian cycle might not be entirely obscured. And I can tell you that the meaning, folks, is that the eyes above are the exoteric meant for the outer world, for the profane, and the eyes below are the esoteric meant for the initiate, the adept, the priest of the mystery schools only. Synesius does not describe the death of Osiris, but merely reports his vanishment and final restoration to the throne. In the latter part of the story, there is also introduced a certain philosopher who was a stranger in Egypt. This philosopher predicts the fall of Typhon and is an eyewitness to the recrowning of Osiris. Synesius says of this philosopher, quote, "He likewise then learned some particulars about Osiris which would shortly happen, and others which would take place at some greater distance of time, viz. When the boy Horus would choose as his associate in battle a wolf instead of a lion. But who the wolf is a sacred narration, which it is not holy to divulge even in the form of a fable," unquote. Well, the lion, we know, has always been of the tribe of Judah. Such is the amazing tradition of the good king Osiris, the first victim, the first mummy, and the first resurrection. He dies and is born again in three forms. First, as god of the underworld, where he rules the justified dead. Second, as the younger Horus, in whose form he battles for his own honor. and third as Harpocrates, the silent child. The latter two forms are regarded as incarnations or embodiments of his very self, yet he exists independent of them as the judge of shades and the lord of the resurrection. Now we know that Osiris was also known as the sun, and Horus was known as the child, or the young Osiris, the young Horus, the baby Horus. So after the sun set in the west, when it rose the next morning, it rose as the young Horus, and as it went across the sky, it became Osiris and then the elder. But in the legends, it's differently at different times Osiris or Horus. Horus the younger, Horus at his peak strength at noon, and Horus the elder. It is also Osiris. So you see that these figures intermingle in the legend, but it all has meaning, and it will all be clear to you at a later time. Now, just because you don't understand some of this and you may be a little lost, don't worry, it will come together. Don't miss one single word of this series of episodes of the Hour of the Time. If you do, I can guarantee you will regret it for the rest of your life. We're going to stop right now, folks. We have to take a break. I will be back right after this very short pause. Nearly all writers attempting an interpretation of the Osirian cycle have recourse to Plutarch. It has seemingly never occurred to Egyptologists that this eminent priest of Delphi might have purposely confused or distorted the fable, or, if not that, might certainly have misdirected the attention of the reader from relevant to irrelevant explanations. Two factors must certainly be taken into consideration when reading Plutarch. First, he was an initiated priest of the mysteries. Of this there can be no doubt. For he himself says, quote, "For the mystic symbols are well known to us who belong to the brotherhood," unquote. And in those days it was known as the Brotherhood of the Snake, and those who possessed the knowledge of the secrets of the ages wore the symbol of the snake on their headdress. And in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, you can see the members of the mystery religion of Babylon in the hieroglyphics as they wore the snake on the front of their forehead. It should be evident to everybody that as an initiate, Plutarch would not have unveiled the secret meaning of the Osirian myth, and I found that to be absolutely true. No man of his priestly station or philosophic mind who so greatly venerated the gods as to attach himself to their service would have been guilty of the impiety of profaning their mysteries, and he would not have violated his oath of secrecy. Furthermore, had his treatise actually exposed any of the secrets of the rites, he would most probably have perished miserably, or at least been publicly disgraced. These evils not descending upon him, we must suppose that his book was regarded as harmless and for our purpose, therefore, at least not directly informative. The second factor which gravitates against the likelihood of Plutarch's interpretations being correct is the condition of Egyptian metaphysics in the 1st century after Christ. If, as Budge maintains, the Egyptians themselves were unaware of the meaning of the word Osiris long prior to the Christian era, into what decay had the old rites fallen even prior to the Ptolemaic period? Now, Pluto based his accounts upon popular traditions. They were most certainly inaccurate, and it is not impossible that even the priests themselves were for the most part ignorant of the origins of their doctrine. It should not be inferred, folks, from the general literature available concerning this Osirian cycle and the mysteries, that all of the priests were themselves initiates of a high order. Only a small part of them ever actually received the greater secrets of their order. For the rest, rite and ritual suffered. And it's the same today. Democritus spent a great part of his life in Egypt, and from the priests of that nation he secured the foundation for his celebrated doctrine of atoms. That's right, folks, atoms, A-T-O-M-S. A doctrine which has survived as a scientific fact to this day. From all these different philosophers who visited Egypt, we shall secure a better estimation of the profundity of Egyptian learning than from even the Egyptian writings themselves. Plato went to Egypt and was initiated into the mysteries in the Great Pyramid, where he lay for 3 days and 3 nights in the sarcophagus, during which he was imparted knowledge which he was to guard, protect. He describes his initiation in his writings. I suggest that you read it. If we can assume the pragmatic viewpoint that the substance of matter is to be determined from its consequences, then we must indeed highly reverence the wisdom of the Egyptians. For it seems that first among the consequences of that wisdom is civilization itself. That cannot be doubted. Civilization is no fable, nor is it a progeny of myths, but that which is real and substantial. And it bears witness to a profound and superior wisdom, which must have existed over a great period of time, and have been communicated to at least a privileged few since the very beginning of man's cultural impulse. Now we can also take the example of Pythagoras, the great philosopher. While a youth, if we may credit Iamblichus, associated himself with Thales of Miletus, from whom he gained a considerable knowledge of the mysteries. Thales, being at that time of great age and infirm body, apologized for his incomplete understanding of the sacred doctrines, and urged Pythagoras to visit Egypt, the motherland of wisdom as it was called in those days. Iamblichus wrote that Thales confessed that his own reputation for wisdom was derived from the instruction of these priests, but that he was neither naturally nor by exercise endued with those excellent prerogatives which were so visibly displayed in the person of Pythagoras. Thales therefore gladly announced to Pythagoras from all these circumstances that he would become the wisest and most divine of all men if he associated with these Egyptian priests. Iamblichus then describes the journey which Pythagoras made to Egypt, how en route he was initiated into the mysteries of several nations, and at last, arriving at his destination, was received by the Egyptian priests with respect and affection. He associated with the Egyptian philosophers for some time, and after demonstrating by his sincerity and consecration that he was worthy to associate with the initiated, he was at last admitted into the secrets of their orders. Quote, he spent, therefore, observes Iamblichus, 22 years in Egypt, and the adyta of temples, astronomizing and geometrizing, and was initiated, not in a superficial or casual manner, in all the mysteries of the gods. Pythagoras must be acknowledged among the first of those divine men to whom the race is indebted for the principles of science, art, and philosophy. And are we to presume that so noble an intellect could have spent 22 years pursuing fabulous shadows in Egyptian crypts? If, as some have asserted, Osiris signified merely the Nile, and Isis the black earth rendered fertile by its inundation, could such a fable have so greatly stimulated the admiration of Pythagoras that he would have spent a score of years in the assimilation of the idea? I don't think so. Or again, Would he have spent this great length of time, the very best years of his life, in memorizing the myth-encrusted history of an ancient king who at some remote period had reigned in Egypt and whose memory seemed sufficient to inspire a vast civilization for some 6,000 years? By the way, that's the exact number of years in the calendar of the Mystery School and of the Freemasons. Or would he approach the matter from another of these explanations? Would Pythagoras have pounded himself for a score of years against the walls of Memphis and find himself fully rewarded by being informed with bated breath by some archi-magus that Isis is the dog star? I think not. It's not impossible that in the course of its long and illustrious history, folks, Egypt devised many opinions relative to her sacred myths, but no such explanation as involved Egypt alone, her histories, her heroes, or her agricultural problems, could have caused illustrious men from all parts of the world to have visited her in quest of essential wisdom, the central core of which is the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, known as the Osirian cycle. The Nile meant nothing to the Greeks, who cared little whether it rose or fell. The sneezing you hear in the background is my dog Sugar Bear, who always accompanies me into the studio to do these programs. Not Egypt, but the Umbos of Delphi was the center of their universe in Greece, and local fables derived from Egypt's 42 gnomes could never have won for the double empire its illustrious reputation as patron of all learning, human and divine. So we must look deeper. And look deeper we did, folks, and what we found is amazing. For we found that Osiris and Isis and Horus were not ever have meant to be, nor were they ever real people or real gods or spacemen who came from some other world. Not at all. As we have found in our research, and as I have found in my over 20 some odd years of research into the mystery schools, they are like all the other symbols of the mystery religion. For the public, for the profane, they are the exoteric, and you may make of them what you wish. The adepts, the initiates, the priests, they don't care what interpretation you give the exoteric meaning. And the esoteric is so entirely different from what you may suspect that the answer will surprise you. You see, we cannot be deceived by the obvious, and you can never be deceived by the obvious, or even consider the obvious when looking at any of the mystery religions or the secret doctrine. And we cannot allow ourselves to be misdirected by the evident subterfuges, the deceptions of these ancient priests, who so carefully concealed their arcana from the uninitiated world that we, at this late time, may even doubt its existence. Yet now, today, it is thriving to the point that it controls all levels of our society, military, and government. The ignorant, the sheeple, even among the Egyptians, might derive their inspiration from the processionals and rituals of the state religion, but that's just for the sheeple. For those great philosophers who came from afar were in search of the highest form of human knowledge, the ancient arts, the secrets of the ages, and could not be satisfied by such outer show. Had these fables been but hollow and unsubstantial forms, Egypt would have been the ridicule of the wise, who would speedily have exposed her sham and reduced her vain pretense to a humble state. But this did not occur. You see, the initiates of her mysteries, returning to their own countries, not only felt themselves more than repaid for their hazardous journeys and long vigils, but furthermore, They became founders of distinguished systems of thinking, disseminators of useful knowledge, and in all cases bore witness to a broad and deep learning, and they always took with them a plan for the unfoldment of a world utopian government, which plan still exists today and is still being carried out in secret as the completion of the great work. Osiris describes two famous columns erected near Nysa in Arabia, one to Isis and the other to Osiris. Now remember, Osiris and Isis never lived, they were not real people, and they were never gods. They are symbols for something much deeper. So when you listen to the interpretation of the inscriptions on the columns, remember that. The column to Isis bears this inscription, quote, "I am Isis, queen of this country. I was instructed by Mercury. No one can destroy the laws which I have established. I am the eldest daughter of Saturn, the most ancient of gods. I am the wife and sister of Osiris the king. I first made known to mortals the use of wheat. I am the mother of Horus the king. In my honor was the city of Bubastis built. Rejoice, O Egypt, rejoice, land that gave me birth," unquote. The column to Osiris bore these words, quote, "I am Osiris the king, who led my armies into all parts of the world, to the most thickly inhabited countries of India, the north, the Danube, and the ocean. I am the eldest son of Saturn. I was born of a brilliant and magnificent egg, and my substance is of the same nature as that which composes light. There is no place in the universe where I have not appeared, to bestow my benefits and make known my discoveries," unquote. And the rest of the inscription, of course, was destroyed. Now, while the inscription on the pillar, or the obelisk in honor of Isis, may be veiled, the inscription on the obelisk dedicated to Osiris is certainly not. He was born of a brilliant and magnificent egg, and his substance is of the same nature of that which composes light. There is no place in the universe where I have not appeared. Osiris, of course, was the sun. In examining Plutarch's treatise, the introductory remarks appear of special significance. Yet, folks, these remarks are wholly ignored by Egyptologists who are content to confine themselves entirely to the fable which constitutes the larger part of the writing. If Plutarch, by any word or symbol, reveals even a small part of the sacred mystery, it is to be found in the following words, quote, "For Isis, according to the Greek interpretation of the word, signifies knowledge, as does the name of her professed adversary, Typhon, signify insolence and pride. A name, therefore, extremely well adapted to one who, full of ignorance and error, tears in pieces and conceals that holy doctrine, which the goddess collects, compiles, and delivers to those who aspire after the most perfect participation of the divine nature." Now, if you have a keen intellect, you can all decipher everything else that I'm going to tell you on this program and probably the next one in that short paragraph. And I'll let you ponder that as I continue. Osiris, the black god of the Nile, must be regarded as the personification of an order of learning, for Plutarch identifies him beyond question with the holy doctrine or the mystery tradition. Now remember, I told you Osiris is the symbol of the sun, but the sun was the symbol of the power of the all-encompassing God of the universe. And later you're going to learn that the light, or the sun, represents something even deeper. It represents, dear listeners, primordial knowing. the gift of intellect. And where people can read these myths and think that these people really worship the sun or some god somewhere, they are mistaken. For the true object of their worship is the intellect. And through the use of that intellect, they believe that man will become God. As Thoth personifies the whole sphere of knowledge, and it was through his assistance that Osiris came into being, so Osiris embodies the secret and sacred wisdom reserved for those who were proficients in the ancient rites. Unquestionably, Osiris was later confused with other members of that vast pantheon of divinities which developed in the decadent period of Egyptian religious culture. But to the elect, the initiate, the adept, the priest, he represented to the end primordial knowing, that utter realization of truth, undefiled by intellection, unlimited by any mortal procedure, uncircumscribed by the limitation of thinking. You see, he signified not only that divine at-one-ment with the absolute, which is the end of all illumination, but by his life, death, and resurrection revealed the means by which mortal consciousness could achieve that end. Now remember, at-one-ment. Thus Osiris becomes a dual symbol, being in the first place the esoteric wisdom. Esoteric, folks, means hidden. So he represented in the first place the esoteric wisdom itself, and in the second place the composite order of initiates through whom that tradition was perpetuated. And now we begin to strip the veil from the mysteries. The personality of Osiris thus typifies the institution erected by the ancients to perpetuate the deathless truths of the soul. The living head was crowned with the plumes of wisdom and power. The hands bore the scepters of the three worlds, but the body was bound with the mummy wrappings of the dead. Here we find spirit, the living head, bound incongruously to matter, the mummified body. The soul was imprisoned in the narrow bonds of flesh. And one thing, through my research, is certain. Osiris represented the secret doctrine prior to that time when the omnific word, or the lost word, of Freemasonry was lost. Osiris is the first of the 5 children of Nut. And here you begin to part some more veils behind which the mystery resides. He therefore corresponds with the first of the 5 divine kings of China and the 5 exoterically known Dhyana Buddhas of Lamaism. The 5 children of Nut are the 5 continents which have appeared upon the earth and the 5 races which have populated these continents. Osiris is the primitive revelation of the first race. But as Isis was born upon the 4th day, we find this tradition coming into Egypt through the Atlantean mystery school of which Isis is the symbol, and you will find at the base of all of these things Atlantis. In this country, the Freemasons established the city of Atlanta as the new Atlantis. And all of this will come together for you. It took me many years of study deep into the night and trying to discuss this with other people who had no idea what I was talking about. So most of it was put together in loneliness late at night. And then when I established my organization known as the Citizens Agency for Joint Intelligence, many others began to help and furnish furnish bits and pieces of information. And we have succeeded, folks, in infiltrating the lodge. We have members in the lodge who feed us information constantly. Members whom we taught how to take an oath so that the oath of Freemasonry would not be binding upon them. You have to play sometimes by the rules of the enemy in order to beat the enemy. And we are beating the enemy now. From the reign of Osiris, we glean the following philosophical history. They believed that there was a time, the Golden Age, when truth and wisdom ruled the earth, and this aristocracy of wisdom was a benevolent despotism, and that's what they want to reestablish. Benevolent to who? That's the question. In which men were led to a nobler state of being by the firm, kindly hand of the enlightened sage. This was the divine dynasty of the mythological priest-kings who were qualified to govern humanity by virtue, not only temporal, but by divine attributes. Through his priests, Osiris, representative of the hidden tradition, ruled the entire world by virtue of the perfection resident in that tradition. Don't miss tomorrow night, folks. You have not even begun your journey. Good night, and God bless each and every one of you.
I know. Yeah, it's been a while. Oh, okay. So I'll repeat. Ryan Bannock was streaming when I saw a while ago. I'm not sure if he is now. So we'll do a little bit of a on topic about this if people want. And let me get the invitation in the live stream YouTube description. So it's there now. Feel free to join and we could talk about this one. Part 1 of 2, Osiris and Iris, Hour of the Time by Bill Cooper. It's the 4th episode or 4th hour of the Mystery of Babylon. I've kind of heard it all before. Used to do a lot of the research into religions when I was in my teens up to my mid to early 20s, trying to find if there was a religion that fit me. Should it be you that fit into religion or religion that fits to you? I always think it's the latter, although it should be the former as like the common way of things. Of course, I'm not the one that would say the operative common. Maybe it would be easy if it was. Of course, then I wouldn't be here talking to you good folk, or chatting with you good folk. So there's a lot of similarities, it looks like, between Christianity, at least the story that's told in the Bible. I should say King James Bible. I'm sure there are previous versions that were less likely to share similarities of the Babylonian religion, I guess. Egyptian, I mean, it's still pretty vague to me. I'm still not 100% there. Like, I'd have to like look at resources to see what's the real difference between Babylonian religion and Egyptian religion. And of course, it seems to be whatever religion that started, whatever that oldest one was, it just kept going. It kept whatever civilization there was, it fed into it. It embedded itself to that civilization's religion. The next one that came along, it did the same thing. That's why we got the same mythological beings within the Greek civilization, the Rome civilization, the Egyptian civilization. You see that interesting dynamic where it just keeps on jumping to the next civilization, and it just embeds itself into the religion of that era. So this is interesting where it all starts off with, and you'll see like the Holy Trinity with Osiris and Isis and Horus. I guess you could say it's Holy Trinity. Well, it's not holy. Well, it's not quite the Trinity that the Roman Catholic religion has. Sorry, I got itchiness because I'm working on the pipes, which I fixed. So I'll wait a little bit longer till more people come in. I think it's a little bit better when the second part is done, just as a discussion topic. If there's anything that anyone gleamed off of this hour, this episode, just let me know. Live chat works too. It's going to be a long weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I believe I might be out for 1 or 2 days, just out in Omaha visiting. So you might not see a stream every day of this weekend. I'll try if I can. If I'm here, why not? What else have I got going? My favorite game that I've been waiting for is called State of Decay 2. I heard bad things, that it was buggy. It's only for Xbox. It's not for PC. And I don't have time for games anyway. I'm just glad it's bad, that it's buggy. It's from Microsoft. What do you know? And it sucks that it is buggy. It sucks that it does kind of suck. It sucks that I don't know what sucks more, that it sucks or that now the game I've been waiting for, I don't really care about playing because it sucks. But then I don't have time to play games anyway. But why don't I have time to play games? I wish I had time to play games. Fishing and playing games, that could just be my thing to do, but I'm not doing it. I used to be a good League of Legends player. I used to be good at a lot of games. Teemo was all I ever played. I could play anything, but I just like playing Teemo just to prove a point. Plus, people hated Teemo. Karthus was the second person that I played because people hated Karthus. I just love playing characters that people hated and that I loved. So it's more of a challenge, of course. It was more of a team game. And what's interesting about big team games is your team is only as good as your weakest player. Because if the other team is any good, they'll exploit that weak player and take advantage of the dynamic between their team and your team. But all right, that has nothing to do with the Osiris and Iris discussion, because there is no discussion right now. I find it interesting because I grew up with the lunar calendar in a way, because my parents were Korean and they followed the lunar calendar. And then what we have is the solar calendar. It's so odd that everything fits in to the mysteries of religion. Hi, Shirley. And why does it always follow us everywhere? I don't know. I mean, we can't get away from it, it seems. Is that its power? I mean, that they've been around since the beginning of time, at least our time. I shouldn't say beginning of time. Beginning of human civilization's time, that these religions have stuck around. That's pretty crazy. I mean, I always thought that the religions that survived and are alive today are because of conquest, that the people who conquered the other people killed them off and subjugated them to believing in that religion of the conquerors. And therefore, you don't really see many peaceful religions out there that exist. Or at least, I mean, they do now. There are a few. That's because of the modern age society. But I doubt that many peaceful religions, spiritual groups back in the past survived very well because they were just conquered. It's always empire that had a leading type of religion. Whoever was in control, who knows? But the current conspiracy theory is that the church, some type of religious deity worshiping person, second in command. Well, you could be the first in command. You just say that God's telling them what they're supposed to do, and anyone who doesn't follow is going to be punished by that deity. You see where this all goes? So, of course, they're going to have a lot more power. You have the power of the people. We're more afraid of this person, this God, that the person says is commanding him to commanding everyone else. Does that person have more power than a king or a queen? If that religion can influence the soldiers, why not? So who's more powerful, you know? The king or the priest? That's the big question. And why does it always have to survive? Why does this story always have to survive, this mythology? And we see it today. We see it in Hollywood. We see it in all the movies. It's the same story repeated in just a different form, a different format, different characters, but it's the same story, the same thing. And that's why we don't see many good movies that are original. Like I said before in previous night, we keep getting remakes. We're starting to get tired of remakes. At least I am. Hey, Amanda. How's it going? Figuring out your audio. Yeah, Ryan's channel's still going.
I just think I would like to know who the first person ever thought there needed to be a religion. I want to know the first person.
Well, does it matter now?
Well, just because I'm a curious person. But I often go back to that story in the Old Testament where Moses goes up to the mountain and God's given him the 10 Commandments, and Aaron, his son, decided, oh, while Moses is up there bringing back God, we need a God. And so he builds this golden calf, and he gathers all the gold from everybody in the camp and molds this gold into this almighty golden calf. And then Moses comes down from the mountain and he's going, what did you do? The God of Abraham, that's who we're supposed to worship. And then he breaks the tablets out of being so pissed off. The one that God supposedly wrote on these tablets. And then he goes back up to the mountain, and this time God says, well, you went and smashed what I wrote and the gift I gave you, so now you need to write it. And it's like, what the fuck? That's pretty messed up. You leave your children behind, you expect to come home and find the house clean, right? And then they mess it up, and then you get mad, and then then you get punished. I mean, that's how I looked at it. And it was like, God, religion has been causing shit for so long.
Yeah, it's always been a method of control. And what's funny is religion now, it seems to be that it evolved to be spiritual, not materialistic. But I think back then it was based on what you did. It was based on the material, before I think Christianity kind of changed a couple of things where it wasn't really based on material. It's just kind of the Abrahamic religions. It wasn't so much, based on accumulation type of things. I don't know. That's what it seems to me. I'm not sure if that's quite right. I feel like, just like the gold, the statues, the representations of stuff that, that was just kind of like that was part of their thing. Just the material representing the gods, rather than what you do here on earth reflects what's going to happen afterwards when you die. It's like the Hindu religion and Buddhism and all this other stuff. But it also it's kind of like a transformation of religion from the early religions to the religions that happened kind of after that kind of the evolution of religion, I guess you could say.
I believe you're right, because if you even think about the description of heaven, the streets are paved with gold, there's mansions and all that, and what's the alternative is this horrible place called hell that you burn forever. You can't ever die. You got to feel the flames burn you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you get. And it's like, That's pretty sadistic, you know. And then they lure you with these mansions and golden streets, and it's like,
I mean, they took the two most opposing ends. They've got the coolest stuff that you can have if you're good, and the worst stuff that you could ever have if you're bad. And so they took some time to think. What could we reward people with? What could we punish people with?
and it's fucked up for people like me who are not materialistic. And if that's what I have to go to, if that's all is just things, well, I've been spoiled by a rich husband, and he was an ass. That didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative here? To burn in hell?
Well, it looks like mansions are your only future after your life. Maybe a couple of virgins.
No. No. I want Prince. I'll be happy with just Prince.
Yeah.
Oh my God, if that's all I ever had for eternity, for all the good I've done on earth, I would feel blessed just to be in his presence. I know that sounds weird. Yeah, I know. This dude, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
He is quite right on as far as everything that I've learned about the Masonic Temple. I mean, it's just like, except the voice he uses makes it sound scarier. Like I was lucky I got out before I got hooked.
Yeah. I don't see, that's his normal voice. He doesn't change his voice. What I like about his show, he doesn't add music. You know how a lot of people in medium or radio, they'll start adding the scary tonal music, or just to get people a little bit more scared, or a little bit more, it feels a little bit more daunting when you're listening. I like that he doesn't do any of that.
Yeah, I would get turned off by it if he was dramatic, but he's not. He's serious as dead fuck, and that's what gets me. When someone's factual and dead serious, that gets my attention, and I go, whoa.
Yeah. Well, from what I've seen of his life, and that's where I kind of want to do more and see if other people find more stuff on him, is I don't see him deviating from what he always did. Just kind of did what he did till he got killed by the police, which is, of course, the police who were disguised as teens in a pickup truck. And if you look at where he lived, it was like in the middle of nowhere almost. It's like, okay, come on, it's a setup, and you guys killed him. And the report showed that he was a militiaman, a gun-toting militiaman, which and he's never had issues before.
And that's hard to believe, because militia people are generally wanting more people like him that are free from groupthink.
Yeah, wait till I stream the 10.5-hour show that he does, where he talks about the militia that's being formed and how to do it right, and how some other people have done it wrong, and how you have to do it correctly. And so that tells you a lot about how he does things. He tried to do things by the book, within the law, and the way that they got him was something very unlawful, which is funny, because when you do things lawful and they get you unlawfully, I mean, that's pique people's curiosity a bit.
Now, he talked about that in that 110-hour. It was a butt-ass long one that you. Yeah. Are you talking about that one?
Yeah. He probably talked about it for like a whole hour. just on militia
Yeah.
forming it and all this other stuff. But we'll get to it, people who are watching or who are catching up. I mean,
I'm quite sure I missed a lot of it because, you know, I have attention spans.
yeah. I mean, 10.5 hours is a long amount to sit
I was a trooper, though. I made it through.
Yeah. But it's fun because it's like a look back of history, and we can actually see it. We can see all that he learned, and that was 25 years ago. Some of his predictions and things like that of if it happens, and the thing is, a lot of people think that it's true that's going to happen. That the entire, because remember, a lot of people used to believe in UFOs were extraterrestrial aliens. That there are a lot of these kidnappings by these aliens for experimentation, whatever. But what he says, and what a lot of other people are saying, that it's a government, or it's the Luciferian, whatever. It's a buildup of what's eventually going to be a faked extraterrestrial landing. And if you think about it, it can be perfectly done, because aliens goes to the White House or the UN Council. They only talk to them. The media only covers it. The mainstream media only has access. They cover it. They can show the aliens or not show the aliens. Normal people can't go and interview them. They don't get access to the UN. They don't get access to White House. So we would really never know. They could say that these are aliens, and they're telling the humans that, hey, they're going to be at war unless you guys all, be good humans and can cooperate with each other,
And that's how, and as soon as we start questioning them, we get risk getting offed.
Yeah, because they're going to say, hey, the aliens are anyone who says that you're look, the aliens are going to kill us unless we unite as a global humanitarian, global human civilization. If we don't cooperate, they're going to kill us all. So if you are against it, or you're fighting against it, you're just going to get killed, because that means you're killing all of us. But we would never know that those were real aliens, because we don't have access. Normal people don't have access.
God, the digital, what do you call it? Not digital, but the graphic.
CGI?
Yeah.
Computer graphics. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can create anything to look real now. I watched a thing of Obama talking, and it would look like he was really saying some fucked up shit, and it was some guy showing how it can be done, and he had his voice down just perfectly.
I mean, say the development of AI that happens, that's going to happen probably by, I think, the latest prediction by the people who create AI, the founder and the maker of the guy who made and had the company that made quantum computers. He's onto AI, artificial intelligence. 2040, I think, was the date, saying that we'll have AI that will do everything better than humans, and there will be self-autonomous. And they could just create an AI robot and say, hide it from the public, and say that these are the aliens. This is the alien messenger, if you will. This is their robot telling humans what they need to do. And if they don't do it, they're going to destroy the human civilization. It's something that could be done, and everyone's just going to kind of go and believe it. The only ones who aren't are the ones who just kind of know that, hey, there was a conspiracy theory that this is going to happen, and it's happening. And well, now what? Right? It's
I know
we want proof that these are aliens.
I know what now. What I have pretty much decided that I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to have fun while I can, and just, I'm tired of fighting. I'm fighting for what, for what?
Yeah. I mean, look, they can keep trying to take away your freedoms, but our freedoms are already there at the Constitution.
Mhm.
So it's either going to be, hey, you're unlawful, or they're unlawful. So which one is it? And it's going to boil down to there's going to be some force involved, as always. And that's just going to be the inevitability. I think people are going to just fight for whatever freedoms that they got left until they're all taken away. Or they're just going to say, fuck it, I'll just join them. And that way I have some masters that'll at least give me some treats for being good to them. Here are my guns.
Cool.
Here's my voice. Here's my social media account. You have all my passwords, all my access.
And by the way, you can have my soul too.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
So they just want, some people just are okay with the scraps. So I think what's good.
Just said it about Jim Morrison. It's, I'm going to get my kicks in before the whole shit house goes up in flames. That's what Jim Morrison said. It's funny. That's what I just got through kind of saying.
So I think what's great about the conspiracy stuff, conspiracy theory, I guess with the mainstream media, we'll call it, is it's funny because some people don't like the conspiracy theory, and they're why are they listening to me? Why are they here? Why are they in our group? We're in that. We're the conspiracy theorists. The mainstream media calls us conspiracy.
Nobody reads the goddamn dictionary anymore. You know, it's like conspiracy is not a negative. It's not like a descriptive term for crazy people. Conspiracy means just conspire against.
Yeah.
Period.
And I mean,
there are conspiracies.
I mean, we're here because we've been conspired against.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. We got the mainstream media that we stopped watching because they kept touting Hillary Clinton to be president, or they just showed Donald Trump 24/7 on an empty podium when they could have showed Bernie Sanders. They don't give debates to third party or any of the third party candidates, just the DNC, RNC. So that's conspiracy right there. That's done to the American public.
Mm-hmm.
To the DNC fraud lawsuit, they conspired to get Bernie Sanders out and Hillary Clinton as the DNC candidate. And that was a conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy theory. That was an actual conspiracy. Mm-hmm. So then whenever we start talking about, hey, if these are the things that they conspire against us, what else is there? Are all these school shootings, are they conspiracy theories, or are they lying to us again? Are they conspiring against us again? Either the FBI are complicit, or they're just god-awful, horrible at their job. Same thing with the police, right?
This new one down in California, what town was that again? I forget, where there was the school shooting.
Santa Fe? I don't know. Yeah. There's ones all over. I think there's one even last night.
They are not releasing any, what do you call those things when you're dead? Autopsy reports.
Oh, yeah, we never do.
It's like,
yeah.
Normally, the press has the right to get those.
Well, you don't want to, it's a sensitive time for the families of dead ones, so you don't really want to hurt their, you want to give them time to grieve. I mean, what kind of person are you, Amanda?
I know, right?
That's always their. That's their argument.
Just like how they brainwash Seth Roach's parents, it's like.
Well, I think it's more to protect their other son, because his other son was also involved with Seth Rich. When Seth Rich found out all the stuff, his brother was with them, was in on it and everything. So I think.
Oh. Yeah. I missed that memo.
Yeah. No, their parents probably don't want to lose their second son, their only other son, right? So they're probably shutting up. So
I
other
think
side
I would back off then. I thought it was just them and they were just
No,
protecting government.
no, they're protecting their other son. That's my opinion. That's my guess. But we don't know. We don't know. I mean, it's the most, to me, it feels like the most obvious and simplest reason for them to keep doing and protecting, not being public about it. And what can they say? If they say anything, you know, they're just going to retort saying that, yeah, they don't know. They're just guessing. And the public media is going to be like, yeah, their parents are crazy. And all of a sudden their kid dies. And it's like, they could blame it on their parents, saying the parents went crazy. See what they're saying? And then now they got their other kid involved, and they can make up anything pretty much. They got so much.
Every day I have a new reason to just be thankful. I am just this nobody out here, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not a part of that crowd. I mean, it's just.
Well, we're probably nobodies that they're keeping their eyes out for. They're like, hey, if these guys ever get anywhere, we're going to have to put a stop to them. That's all they do. They just wait for you to get up to their little level, and they go, okay, we got to stop these guys because we're nobody yet. If we get 100, 200 people getting active and expanding everywhere, like every 100 people doing this, two places per state and kind of congregating and growing. Now that's when they're going to say, all right, we gotta do something, because they're creating their own network of news, creating their own network of media, creating their own network of communications and bypassing, you know, they're not getting any piece of it. They don't have any control over it. They're gonna want to shut it down, control it first, or they're gonna shut it down.
Shame us.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah, fuck them. All right, let's join Ryan's show so we could talk about anything. We kind of segued off, but part 2 would be sometime this weekend, hopefully tomorrow night. And if I don't see you guys outside of Ryan's show, happy Memorial Day weekend. Happy birthday, 30th birthday, Eric.
Happy birthday, Eric.
30th birthday isn't as fun as the 21st.
Yeah, I know. First time you get to do the adult drinking, order your own drink at the bar.
And you go to casino too. I think that's it, really, isn't it? Drinking, and you can go to casino.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember
I was in a band, and they let me in at 17 as long as I wasn't drinking. I could stay with the band. You know, because there was different rules for band members.
Oh, huh.
And I remember on my 21st birthday, I performed, and it was at the Big Bear, and I went up to the bar and I ordered my first drink as an adult on my night, and it was like, yeah, I arrived.
All right, I'll see you at Ryan's channel.
Thank you.
See you, everyone. I'll put Ryan's link, if you guys don't have it, in the live stream chat.
Thank you.